Welcome to another episode of Ask Better Questions. This episode will be a little different, and I'll be using this episode to explain a pivot that I am making and the sponsor of the show is also making. Previously, we did a significant amount of work in the AI space, and whilst we firmly believe that this is the future of business and a hugely seismic shift in organizational dynamics, both David and I have recognized something very fundamental. As businesses shift to utilize AI in their operations, the differentiating factor for business will become leadership, not AI. And we also have noticed that the command and control method often adopted in large business organizations will actually accentuate and accelerate that. So that will speed the transition, if you will. So before I dive into this change in direction, I would like to take a minute to thank the sponsor, Color4 Solutions. And what Color4 Solutions does will become more evident as you listen to the rest of the podcast. So to explain why I'm changing the direction of this podcast, and indeed the business Color4 Solutions, I'll need to take you back some months. David and I had a long conversation in regards to why AI was the future of business. Now there's still some divergence in exactly why and what and how AI may be used, but we do agree that the change will be profound. Having said that, in the spirit of this podcast, I asked better questions. So in a world where AI is used to deliver services and conduct business, what is the differentiating factor between businesses? And what does an organization's competitive advantage, in what way and whereabouts does an organization's competitive advantage lay? Well, we both pondered this for a while and we offered a few suggestions. It could be processing power in terms of computing, it could be better AI models, but we ultimately shot both of those down. They seem unlikely. Processing power is coming down in price and much of the development in AI is open source or available for sale. So how then will businesses differentiate themselves from the crowd? Well, we came up with an answer that most may dismiss out of hand, but we feel it's compelling. We believe that the differentiating factor will be leadership. The ability of business leaders to sell their vision to both employees and consumers. And there's a number of reasons for this. The current organizational paradigm for business is typically process-driven, top-down. Management and not leadership prevails in most organizations. The strategic direction executives set for organizations is rarely communicated sufficiently or indeed well throughout most businesses, and typically office politics trumps delivery of results every time. Now, this is not something new, and a lot of organizations struggle with creating a good corporate culture. A lot of you will be listening to these things and going, well, yeah, but that's been in place for decades. It's like, that has been the way it has always been, that organizations don't function as well as they should. Absolutely. Now, the reason for the points that I've made here are many. It's reasonably easy to see that middle management find it significantly easier to fall back on process in day-to-day interactions than actively lead their teams and engage. Focus on process is not only easier, it's also less threatening to career prospects. Actually engaging and leading your team isn't a surefire guarantee of success and could result in actually initially poor results. However, focus on existing process is easy, requires little effort, and allows for blame shifting. Well, I followed the process, it must be the process's fault. The drawbacks of process-driven approaches are actually enormous. However, frequently they're felt at the organizational level and not at the team or individual level. Things like high turnover, low enthusiasm for work and a poor work culture, a lack of engagement, innovation across the organization, slow to absolutely absent or no ability to adapt to change, poor, and I mean really poor customer service. Poor engagement leads to apathetic customer service agents. And why become engaged with a job that is completely process-driven? Why show any flair whatsoever? So typically the organizational goals, mission, and strategic direction are not known by most employees. And that's not because they haven't been told the strategic direction and mission and goals and things like that. They've seen emails. They've even noticed that their email signature has changed to a lovely rainbow thing with some other words on it. But there's a distinct lack of enthusiasm for the organization as a whole. And that is principally because they're seen as something that is replaceable. And this matters. It matters a lot. It impacts all facets of a business. But more than that, if you have a poor performing process-driven function, or several of the process-driven functions that are poorly performing, they are so much more easily replaced with AI. This is one thing that Dave and I just turned to each other and went, well, if you've got a function that is process-driven and you've got the documented processes and it's performing poorly, well, surely it'll be better under AI. And even if it's not, well, then you've got rid of a whole bunch of poorly performing people anyway. So a lot of businesses are looking to do exactly that, and that's fine. AI itself doesn't lack motivation, and it will happily perform the same function 24/7, 365 days for years on end. However, it will also bring the same disengaged energy to bear on everything it touches. It will have a negative impact on culture, because there will be this absence of culture in a section of the business. It will have negligible positive innovation impacts, although it may provide insights via data. But fundamentally, business is the exchange of value between people, and people prefer doing business with people, and people that identify with, people will work with people that they identify with, people that they share values with, and people that they are treated with respect by. So in the last 2 decades, what started with a small trickle of process-driven roles has ballooned into a giant tidal wave approach. Like, businesses have rushed to document anything and everything done by everyone in a business, and attempted to make many roles as turnkey as possible to lower overall risk that employees might leave or move positions. Swathes of managers have been told their roles are to lead, quote unquote, lead their teams, and being handed a manual and told everything you need is in this. And clearly many managers have taken that quite literally. If it's not in the manual, I don't do it. And even stuff that is in the manual is often, well, I don't have time to do everything that's in the manual. So I can't begin to tell you how many people I've spoken to who believe the modern generation of employees are brain dead and simply turn up to work to switch their brains off to perform mindless, repetitive roles and then go home again. And I have spoken to many executives and middle managers who have just gone, the new crew are just incredibly dumb. And it's just not true. And I point out to these managers, for lack of a better term, these people are often the people who are most successful. A lot of the managers for these people are the people that are often the most successful at turning off their own brains. So the people that perform best under the KPI system are people that turn their brains off and just get it done. And they get promoted because you know how to turn your brain off. Great, cool. Do you know how to create good process? Great, cool. Then you get promoted. The problem with that is you get promoted to a position where you don't have the skills to lead, and you'll give it a manual that says, follow this will get you out of the poop, and it doesn't. So what you really need to do, well, I guess, how do we arrest the decline? Is it even possible to arrest the decline? Well, we start by engaging with employees and management and the entire organization. So the entire organization needs to engage with itself. We need to demonstrate a belief in teams and our staff. We actually need to believe that they have value and that they intrinsically can bring value to the workplace. You're not filling a cog in a machine. We want to know who you are and why you want to buy into our dynamic. Apple doesn't just hire the best engineers. They hire the best engineers who want to work at Apple. And why do they want to work at Apple? Because there's a culture there of innovation. And it is a campus. It's not just a work site. It's not just an office. It's a campus. You are there to engage. Employees, I've found that when you have a demonstrated belief demonstrated by the organization in their staff, there's a couple of things that happen. But I've found that together with a clear and well-known strategic direction, if the employees get that, and a demonstrated belief in their own ability by the business, demonstrated to the employees then demonstrate a clear belief and trust in the organization that they work for. So where do we go from here? Well, David and I have some very special stuff in the works at the moment, and currently we are working on a training program in relation to how to transition from a process and management driven organization. And we are pivoting both the podcast and in fact everything we do towards leadership training. We have a lot of stuff already in the pipe at the moment. We have a new book in the works, which I am working on a lot. We have some more stuff coming out on our LinkedIn and indeed on our webpage. If you are looking for more resources on this, follow us on LinkedIn, like and subscribe to the podcast, because this podcast is now going to be covering a lot more on leadership. But beyond that, we are developing products for businesses who want to make the transition, who want to improve their performance by shifting away from a complete focus on process. Because we feel if you don't shift away from process-driven work, you're going to find that in the next five years or so, that a lot of that process work will be done by AI, and your organization will suffer because all you've got is an AI doing it. You need to develop compelling cases for what it is that you do. You need to communicate your strategic direction to both inside and outside of the organization. You really need to get people enrolled in your vision. And in order to do that, we are creating the tools here at Color4 Solutions. So if you want to know more, like and subscribe to the podcast, follow us on LinkedIn, and go visit our website. Beyond that, I'll be here next week to ask better questions. Have yourselves a great week, and we will speak to you soon.